Urban birds are not just used to people. Their behavior is shaped by repeated exposure to humans, food, artificial water features, traffic noise, buildings, and direct human attitudes towards them. Ducks on the University of Oregon campus showed this on a small local scale, using human altered spaces like reflection pools and campus lawns, and responding to food opportunities from people, all while still carrying out their natural behaviors like mate competition in a very unnatural setting. For this project, I'm looking at how birds adapt behaviorally to urban environments. I grew up in the big city of Chicago, which is home to almost as many pigeons as people. They've built a reputation as rats with wings and are seen more as pests than the intelligent and loyal doves that they truly are. In all places I've lived, I've taken notice of how the local birds adapt to living in an increasingly urban world. These birds are easy to overlook because they seem so ordinary, but they exhibit many interesting behaviors and adaptations. Urban areas are not just habitats with people around, they are completely altered environments. They change where food comes from, where water is available, how much noise animals hear, where they can nest, and how close they have to live to humans. Some bird species disappear from these spaces, but others become very successful. The biologist Anders Moeller did a study on urban birds and found that successful city dwelling species tend to have traits like high dispersal ability, feeding innovation, shorter flight distances around humans, and high reproductive success. That matters because it suggests that urban birds are not random. The species that do well in cities often already have behaviors or traits that make them better at surviving close to people. A few key concepts of animal behavior that help explain what's happening with city birds. Habituation happens when an animal responds less strongly after repeated exposure to something that does not harm it, like people walking near it every day. Behavioral flexibility is the ability to change behavior in response to new conditions. Feeding innovation is especially important in cities because birds may use food sources that would not exist in their natural habitats, like garbage, crumbs, or food scraps. Sexual competition is the evolutionary struggle to secure mates, most often between males. The University of Oregon campus is a great example of a small urban habitat. It has lawns, paths, buildings, artificial water features, and constant human activity. The ducks near the LLC and the Hakua Academic Center are not living in a wild wetland, but they are still using the landscape in ways that meet some of their needs. The reflection pool at Hakua probably attracts them because it looks very pond-like, even though it likely does not provide much natural food. The ducks also seem to stay near places where people feed them or where food scraps are available. I also wonder whether these ducks move between campus and the Willamette River, since the river would provide a more natural water corridor nearby. In one instance, while observing ducks on campus, I witnessed two male mallards fighting over a female. This is important because it shows that even though these ducks are living in a human-built environment, they are still performing natural behaviors connected to reproduction. The setting changes, but the behavioral pressure is still there. Male mallards compete to access for females, and in this case, the conflict happens besides campus buildings and artificial landscaping instead of in a marsh or pond. My friends and I stood still watching the altercation when the female duck came up behind us, using our bodies as a barrier between her and the aggravated males. In this case, she used the urban environment to her advantage, trusting that us humans pose less of a threat than others of their own species. Campus ducks often seem unusually calm around people. One likely explanation is habituation. They are exposed to students, staff, bikes, and foot traffic every day, but most of those interactions do not directly harm them. Over time, it may become less useful for them to flee every time someone walks past. Fleeing costs energy and interrupts feeding, resting, or mating behavior. If humans are not usually dangerous, staying put can be the better choice. At the same time, they may also associate people with food. That combination can make ducks appear very tame, even though their behavior is really a response to repeated patterns in the environment. Muller's study explains why some birds thrive in cities while others do not. He found that urban bird species were often more flexible and better at dealing with novelty. They had higher dispersal ability, meaning they could reach and colonize new environments. They also had higher feeding innovation, meaning they could figure out new food sources. They tended to have shorter flight distances when approached by humans, which means they tolerated human presence more than rural species. This applies well to ducks, pigeons, gulls, crows, and other birds that often seem almost too comfortable around people. Their comfort is not just cuteness or personality, it can be part of a larger pattern of urban survival. One of the clearest ways humans affect birds is through food. Around campus, the ducks seem to spend time near places where people may feed them or where scraps are available, like near the dining halls and garbage bins. This fits with the idea of feeding innovation because the birds are using a human-created food source, but this is not always harmless. When birds learn that humans equal food, they may become bolder, gather in higher numbers, or spend more time in places that are not actually the best habitat for them. It can also increase competition. If multiple ducks are drawn to the same food-rich area, then aggression and mate competition may become more visible. Biologist Klukas and Marzloff's study is really useful because it shows that birds are not only responding to buildings or traffic, they are responding to human behavior itself. In their study of Seattle and Berlin, birds genuinely became wary from urban to rural areas, meaning they had longer flight initiation distances outside the city. But they also found that discouraging behavior from humans, like chasing and repelling birds, could increase bird wariness in certain species. This is important for my project because it means that human attitudes become part of the bird's behavioral environment. A duck that is fed every day and a duck that is chased away every day are not living in the same social world, even if they are in the same city. Noise is another major part of urban bird life. Namath and Brahm explain that acoustic communication is important for birds because calls and songs are used for mating, territory defense, and warning others about predators. In cities, low-frequency traffic noise can mask those signals. Some birds respond by singing louder or at a higher pitch. Their study found that increasing pitch only slightly improved communication distance, while increasing amplitude or singing louder had a much stronger effect. This shows that urban adaptation is not always simple. A behavior may look adaptive, but researchers still have to test whether it actually improves survival or reproduction. My interest in this topic also comes from noticing birds in different places. In Eugene, I see ducks treating parts of campus almost like habitat. At my home in Chicago, pigeons are part of the city background, but they are also increasingly successful urban birds. My dad's hometown of Corpus Christi, Texas, has been deemed the birdiest city in the U.S., with thousands of coastal birds and gulls flying everywhere. These are different species in different places, but they're all responding to similar pressures: food from people, tolerance of human presence, altered landscapes, and opportunities created by cities. One of my earliest memories of bird behavior happened in Corpus. When I was little, my grandpa took my cousins and I to the beach. For lunch, we had sweet tea, chicken salad sandwiches, and a big bag of Cheetos. He warned us over and over not to feed the seagulls because they would swarm us. But of course, my cousin and I did not listen. We threw one Cheeto into the air, and within moments, hundreds of gulls were everywhere, screaming, swooping down, trying to steal food, and pooping all over the place. My grandpa calmly pulled out an umbrella that he had packed to protect himself from the poop. But when we tried to get under it, he pushed us away to soak us in poop as punishment. It's funny now, looking back, but it also shows a very real behavioral pattern. The gulls had learned that people at the beach often meant food, and they responded incredibly fast. One important question is whether urban bird behavior is learned during an individual bird's lifetime or whether it reflects adaptation across generations. The answer is probably both. A duck can learn that a certain campus area has food, and a gull can learn that beachgoers drop snacks. A pigeon can learn how to navigate sidewalks and crowds, but over longer time periods, birds that are naturally more flexible, less fearful, or better at using human resources may survive and reproduce more successfully in cities. Muller's work supports this larger idea because urban birds often share traits like risk-taking, innovation, and broad ecological success. Because human behavior affects bird behavior, we have some responsibility in how we interact with urban birds. Feeding ducks bread, chips, or leftovers might feel harmless, but it can encourage dependency, crowding, aggression, and poor nutrition. It can also draw birds into unsafe spaces. A better approach is to observe them without interfering, avoid chasing or touching them, keep trash contained, and give them space during mating, nesting, or conflict. Urban birds are not pets, even when they seem comfortable around us. They are still wild animals adjusting to a world we built around them. Overall, urban birds show how animal behavior changes under human influence. Ducks on campus still compete for mates, search for food, rest, and move through their environment, but the environment itself is shaped by people. Looking closely at ordinary birds makes urban ecology feel much more immediate. These animals are not separate from human spaces. They are actively interpreting and adapting to them every day. Thank you for your time.